Imagine this. It's the 25th of September 2008. Panicked customers are flooding Washington Mutual branches across America, desperately trying to pull out their life savings. In just 9 days, over $16.7 billion vanishes from accounts. Phones are ringing off the hook, ATMs are running dry, and then in a single evening, the largest bank failure in US, history unfolds, not with a bang on Wall Street, but with regulators quietly seizing an institution that once symbolized the American dream of homeownership and financial security. This isn't just another story from the 2008 financial crisis. This is the rise and spectacular fall of Washington Mutual, or WaMu, a bank that grew from humble roots in post-fire Seattle to become a colossus with $307 billion in assets, only to collapse under the weight of reckless lending, toxic mortgages, and a perfect storm of greed and regulatory failure. Today, we're diving deep into the biggest banking failure in U.S. history. We'll explore how a friendly neighborhood savings and loan transformed into a high-risk mortgage machine, the human stories behind the headlines, the domino effects that nearly toppled the global economy, and the hard lessons that still shape our financial world today. Stick around, because this isn't dry history, it's a cautionary tale, with echoes in every banking scare we've seen since. Let's start at the beginning. Washington Mutual was founded on the 25th of September 1889 as the Washington National Building Loan and Investment Association. This was right after the Great Seattle Fire had devastated the city. The idea was simple: help families rebuild by providing home loans. It was a mutual savings bank owned by its depositors, with the slogan, "The Friend of the Family." For decades, it operated conservatively, focusing on safe, local lending. It survived the Great Depression, made acquisitions during tough times, and grew steadily. By the mid-20th century, it was a pillar of the Pacific Northwest's financial community. In the 1980s, things began to change. WaMu demutualized in 1983, becoming a public company. This shift from customer-owned to shareholder-driven marked the start of aggressive expansion. Under leaders like Kerry Killinger, who became CEO in 1990, WaMu embarked on a buying spree. They acquired banks, mortgage companies, and even credit card operations. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, WaMu had branches in multiple states and was positioning itself as a retail banking powerhouse. They marketed themselves as approachable, with catchy ads and a focus on everyday customers. Power of Yes became their internal mantra, approving loans quickly to drive growth. The real transformation happened in the mortgage boom of the early 2000s. Low interest rates set by the Federal Reserve after the dot-com bust and 9/11 encouraged borrowing. Home prices skyrocketed. WaMu saw an opportunity. They ramped up mortgage lending, especially subprime and alternative loans. In 1999, they acquired Long Beach Mortgage, a subprime specialist known for loose standards. This was a pivotal move. Long Beach's practices, high fees, risky underwriting, started infiltrating WaMu's culture. By the mid-2000s, WaMu was one of the largest mortgage originators in the U.S. Let's talk about the products that fueled this. Option adjustable rate mortgages, or option ARMs, were huge. These loans let borrowers pay less than the full interest, sometimes just a minimum payment that could be added to the principal. Negative amortization, teaser rates. No documentation loans, liar loans, where borrowers could state their income without proof. WaMu's sales culture pushed loan officers to close deals at all costs. Internal emails and later investigations revealed pressure to ignore red flags. Risk managers warned about rising defaults, but their concerns were often sidelined or they faced repercussions. The power of yes meant saying yes to almost anyone with a pulse. WaMu wasn't alone. The entire industry was caught up in the frenzy. Wall Street securitized these loans into mortgage-backed securities, MBS, and collateralized debt obligations, CDOs. Rating agencies gave them AAA stamps. Investors worldwide bought them, thinking they were safe. WaMu sold many of its loans off its books but kept servicing them and held on to a lot of risky paper. By 2006, the housing market was peaking. WaMu reported strong profits, $3.6 billion in 2006. Stock price soared. Executives were compensated handsomely, with bonuses tied to loan volume. But cracks appeared early. In 2006, as home prices slowed, mortgage originations dropped. WaMu started laying off staff. Losses mounted. In 2007, they reported a $67 million net loss after writing down bad loans. Subprime defaults surged. By early 2008, WaMu was in trouble. They raised capital from investors like Texas Pacific Group, $7 billion or so, but it wasn't enough. Regulators from the Office of Thrift Supervision, OTS, and FDIC were watching closely. WaMu's asset quality deteriorated rapidly. Non-performing loans ballooned. The broader 2008 crisis provided the fatal blow. Bear Stearns collapsed in March, sold to JPMorgan with Fed help. Then, in September, Lehman Brothers filed for the largest bankruptcy in history. Panic spread. Confidence evaporated. For WaMu, it triggered a classic bank run. Between September 15 and 24, depositors withdrew $16.7 billion, about 9% of total deposits, much of it via online transfers. Branches saw long lines. This liquidity crunch was unsustainable. On the 25th of September 2008, the OTS seized WaMu and placed it into FDIC receivership. That same day, the FDIC sold the banking operations to JPMorgan Chase for $1.9 billion. It was a fire sale. JPMorgan got a massive branch network, deposits and assets, but also the toxic loans, which they later wrote down by billions. The holding company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy the next day. Shareholders and bondholders were wiped out, but insured depositors were protected. FDIC stepped in seamlessly. Branches reopened as Chase the next business day. No taxpayer bailout for WaMu itself. The deal was structured to cost the deposit insurance fund nothing initially, though there were complexities later. This failure was massive. WaMu had $307 billion in assets, dwarfing previous failures like Continental Illinois in 1984. It was the largest insured depository institution failure ever. In the context of 2008, it accelerated the crisis. Wachovia faced runs afterward. Credit markets froze. The government pushed through TARP, the $700 billion Troubled Asset Relief Program. Fear gripped the nation. Unemployment rose. Millions lost homes. The Great Recession took hold. What made WaMu unique? Its aggressive retail focus and friend-of-the-family image clashed with the reality of predatory lending practices exposed in lawsuits and congressional hearings. Former employees spoke of a toxic sales culture. One loan officer later said it felt like a disgrace. Investigations showed systemic issues, inadequate underwriting, falsified documents in some cases, ignoring risk. The OTS was criticized for lax oversight of thrifts. JPMorgan Chase emerged stronger. Jamie Dimon called it a great deal. They integrated the branches, rebranded, and used WaMu's deposit base to bolster their position. Today, Chase is one of the biggest banks, partly thanks to this acquisition. But for WaMu's customers, employees, and investors, it was devastating. Thousands of jobs lost. Retirement savings gone for shareholders. Homeowners with underwater mortgages struggled. To make this script come alive for your video, weave in visuals. Old photos of Seattle, 2000s boom housing ads, charts of rising defaults, news footage of lines at branches, interviews or reenactments of customer stories. A customer in California watching their savings transfer overnight. An employee in a Seattle call center fielding angry calls. Executive testimonies from FCIC hearings. Compared to modern failures like SVB in 2023 to show timeless risks of rapid growth, interest rate mismatches, and uninsured deposits. The regulatory aftermath. Dodd-Frank Act in 2010 brought stricter rules, stress tests, higher capital requirements. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau created. Too big to fail addressed, though debates continue. WaMu highlighted flaws in the thrift charter and securitization. Lessons? Banks must balance growth with prudence. Regulators need teeth. Consumers should diversify and understand risks. Homeownership isn't guaranteed without solid fundamentals. Expanding on the human impact. Thousands of WaMu employees lost jobs or saw 401 KES tied to stock plummet. Families who took option arms faced payment shocks when rates reset, monthly payments doubling or tripling. Foreclosures tore through neighborhoods. In some areas, entire blocks emptied. The psychological toll, stress, anxiety, lost trust in institutions. WaMu symbolized how Wall Street excess hit Main Street. Economically, the failure contributed to a credit crunch. Businesses couldn't get loans. Auto sales tanked. Construction halted. Global contagion, European banks holding U.S. MBS, suffered. Central banks coordinated rate cuts and liquidity injections. It took years for recovery. U.S. GDP contracted sharply. Unemployment peaked near 10%. Recovery was uneven, fueling populism and debates on inequality. Unique angles for your video. The irony of the friend of the family becoming a symbol of betrayal. How online banking accelerated the run-first major digital bank run. Comparison with savings and loan crisis of the 1980s. Role of compensation incentives. What if regulators acted sooner? Insider accounts from books like The Lost Bank by Kirsten Grind. Speculation on whether it was truly too big or just poorly managed. JPMorgan's Project West planning. Post-bankruptcy litigation that dragged on for years. Picture a borrower with shaky credit. WaMu offers an option arm with a 1% teaser rate. Minimum payment doesn't cover interest. Balance grows. Home prices fall 30%. Suddenly, owing more than the house is worth, and payments jump to 8% or higher. Default. Foreclosure. This story repeated hundreds of thousands of times. Dive into FDIC resolution process. Purchase and assumption agreement. How they protected deposits without costing the fund much. Contrast with bailouts for others. Analyze balance sheet pre-failure. Heavy in option arms, $52.9 billion. Subprime. HELOCs. Liquidity ratios tanking. Broader context. Link to Fannie. Freddie conservatorship, AIG bailout, TARP debates in Congress, Paulson, Bernanke, Geithner roles, public anger leading to Occupy Wall Street later, long-term effects on banking concentration, big banks got bigger. Modern relevance. With rising interest rates, commercial real estate risks, fintech disruptions, crypto volatility, could another WaMu happen? SVB and First Republic in 2023 showed similarities. Rapid growth, rate sensitivity, social media amplified runs, but swift government action contained it. Regulations worked somewhat, but vigilance needed. Employee and customer anecdotes. Stories of tellers calming nervous clients, loan officers quitting in disgust, retirees losing faith. Community impact in cities like Seattle, where WaMu was a major employer. Cultural shift from friendly local bank to aggressive lender. Technical deep dive. Mortgage securitization explained simply. How tranching worked or didn't. Credit default swaps. Leverage ratios. Mark-to-market accounting debates. Basel Accords and capital rules failures. Political angle. Deregulation in prior decades, Graham-Leach-Bliley. Bipartisan blame. Reforms under Obama. Ongoing fights over Dodd-Frank rollbacks. Economic data. Charts of housing starts, delinquency rates, bank failure waves. Hundreds in 2008 to 2012. Inflation-adjusted asset sizes. Global comparisons. Personal finance lessons. Importance of FDIC insurance awareness. diversifying banks, reading loan terms, building emergency funds, skepticism of too good to be true rates. Future of banking, digital transformation, AI underwriting, CBDCs, climate risks to mortgages. Will big failures still happen? Wrap with reflection. WaMu's story reminds us that financial systems are built on trust. When that erodes, consequences are swift and severe. But from failure comes resilience. The U.S. banking system stabilized, innovations continued, and safeguards improved. Yet, human nature, greed, fear remains. Staying informed is key.